the ease of access that I can kind of just use, like, across from like creating something in Procreate and then throwing it on my computer right into Photoshop. It's just like, so the workspace environment is just so easily accessible to me.
Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today on the show, we have creator Evan Maguire joining us, and we talk about freelancing as an artist and what options you may not have considered, finding an audience and creating work that you had a true passion for, and why you should always remember why you do what you do as a creator to keep on going. All of this and so much more on today's Inspired Inc. Dude, so you've been like freelancing pretty hard lately, and doing like an illustrator kind of career at this point. How are you surviving, and how did you figure out a way to kind of, or what did it take for you to become a freelancing artist to just survive off of that?
Yeah, so I started taking drawing more seriously way back, like when I was finishing out college. And at that point, I had the path pretty carved out to become a full-time graphic designer. I had like an in-house job lined up. But just like doing the art thing, like, the illustrator side of things, that always like was in the back of my mind. And then last May, unfortunately, the business that I worked for closed. So I was without a job. And while I was on unemployment, I was just like, you know what, I have the time. I have like, a steady enough income for the time being. So let me just run with this and see where it goes. And from there, I tried to fill my schedule with, tabling at different local events and collaborating with people like you and people like Alex, who I submitted the work for the Shadow anthology with. Shout out to Alex for the killer script on that. I'm really excited to see that printed. But looking for any and all opportunities like that to really further myself down the professional specific path of my artistry, So it's a lot. I feel like I'm always having to be very fluid with my schedule, especially now that I'm also working a part-time job again, but also trying to fill the rest of my time with as much freelance illustration work as possible. I'm always kind of having to like stay agile on a week-to-week basis, look for pockets of time where I can get my work done, and my days off, choose where I'm going to be at the drawing board all day, and days I can kind of ease off the gas a little bit and take time to like recharge myself a little bit. I'm just always got to be ready for something to get thrown into the mix, because you never know what projects are going to come up, or if I don't know, if a client is going to maybe pull out the rug from underneath you, because I definitely have had that happen as well. So you kind of always have to be ready for something.
Dang, yeah, that's a lot to kind of dissect there too. I mean, what are some types of projects that you've been chasing after as a freelance illustrator, and what are some of the skill sets you've realized that you needed to be successful at this?
So I don't know. I feel like I'm chasing down opportunities in, like I said, working with other creatives to put together comic book stories, more sequential art based pieces. And then I'm also, I feel like really into like Pokemon, like trading card art. I've been making a bunch of my own Pokemon cards, like combining clients with their favorite Pokemon and then like putting those out there, like, giving them a physical card. I actually had them on display at one event, and some kid came up and he was just like, these are cursed Pokemon cards. And that was just like a funny thing to hear. But I also actually recently just submitted some artwork to an official Pokemon TCG illustration contest.
Oh, cool.
So, the winners, I think it's the first three winners, the top three winners of that get their artwork made into a promo card that will be playable for, anybody who plays the game or collects the cards. So that is just like, I don't know, my bread and butter. I think, as those opportunities to like shoot my shot for the things that I would ultimately like to be doing, that's kind of where my headspace is at. I'm always on the lookout for, opportunities, like I said, to collaborate with other people who are on my independent level, and then also looking for opportunities with some like big wigs that, if I were to have my artwork, marketed by them, that would be a huge help to me as well, and then I also find myself working on a lot of like portraits and I don't know, more personalized asks of clients that they come to me for, my commission work. So it's like I get the stuff that I kind of want to do a little bit more, but I'm also taking money, taking some money from, you're getting money from those opportunities that are presented to me for, I guess, more formal work, portraits and stuff that I guess like is more formal than the stuff that I'm chasing after.
Dude, that's awesome. And you also have like the Patreon going on too, which is like another sufficient way for you to like put out yourself out there, have people get to know you a bit better. But that's also where you're kind of marketing this Pokemon thing too. And I love that because you're taking something that you just love and adore dearly, and you're giving people a chance to join in on that by like offering them a service. And in that service, you're getting paid for it, which is helping you pay the bills. And you get to draw something that you do, in fact, love to draw, a Pokemon. And you're kind of just having fun and recreating it with different like people and like assigning them stuff. So you get to know characteristics and you get to know what kind of appeals to someone. I think that's such a brilliant approach to take a freelancing aspect, because it doesn't seem like, of course it's a grind. It's a lot of work. Like you said, you're trying to wiggle around stuff. You're trying to figure out time. You have a lot of things to build upon. There's, I'm sure, drafts upon drafts when you're going through these characters.
Oh yeah.
And so like you're getting all this, but you're just making it fun for yourself, and you're not making it destroy you. It's kind of like if you love drawing superheroes, you offer this service to like do a full page splash for someone, and you kind of find a way to make it more manageable, like by finding that niche that like it's a trading card at the end of all this. Like there's so many things you're hitting here that on a business outlook, on a self-sufficient happiness level outlook, it seems like you're winning pretty well at that.
Yeah, I'm doing my best, and actually, I've recently tried to recenter my focus on the enjoyment of my craft and making all of my work more fun. Because while I was on unemployment and kind of had my nose to the grindstone more steadily, and like I was trying to find that niche, I started to get burnt out for sure. And a lot of the projects that I was working on definitely started to feel more like work. And then recently I went through a bit of financial instability, and that caused me to have to just kind of like think quick on my feet to like make some scratch. And I wasn't able to be overly creative during that time. And I feel like during that time, I was forced into a position where I, didn't have as much creative time, and it allowed me to miss it. And when I came back to it, I kind of recentered myself and reaffirmed myself as to why I want to be an artist, why I'm coming back to it. Because I could have, I could have just called it quits at that point, and looked for financial stability elsewhere. But I looked for opportunities to make my situation work and get back to a point where I could be, relatively financially stable and still be able to pursue my artwork, and being able to step back and sort of reanalyze my situation to that degree, I have been able to find more enjoyment in the work that might have previously felt more mundane. So it's like it's been really nice to also, on top of that, continue getting a bit of income from it.
So you basically went from like this love of drawing and this like admiration, and you were like head over heels, like working on stuff, into a burnout phase. And it kind of felt like you were questioning things. And like then it had to turn into your job, which it was always meant to kind of become your job. But now it's a different type
Absolutely.
of stuff. You have the creativity stripped down from it. And a lot of people, whenever they get to that point where there's financial strain, whenever there's, work and just life strain, and they have to pause on their stuff, that typically means they're not working on their craft at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
But like you still got to kind of like work on your craft and then just come back to it in a different aspect, the aspect you wanted out of it, which was a creative outlook. Do you think like that period of just like that really intense work, having to really grind just to kind of survive off of it, helped you grow creatively at the end of it all? Like, do you think your skills are now better where they were? Do you think your outlook on like what you're doing on your pages is better?
I think so. I think that a lot of that time was focused more on figuring out ways to market myself and to get myself seen, because obviously I was still doing a significant amount of creating, but a lot of that time also had to be poured into the like figuring out these like more business aspects of what it takes to be a professional level artist. um and so I
Do you have
guess I
any tips on
wasn't.
that, like the business aspect of it all that you could give listeners?
I think my biggest tip would be to research research the hell out of platforms that are beneficial to you, because I feel like the typical go-tos are like, I have to be up on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and your audience might not necessarily be on those platforms primarily. I mean, the
Hmm.
majority of people are on these platforms to varying degrees, but exploring platforms like Patreon, and then if you are an artist, exploring selling your work on um, Big Cartel or Etsy, because there are different art channels that support different styles of artists. Etsy promotes a lot of like craftier handmade things, not to say that like you can't make it on there as like more of an illustration artist, but there's more of a market for what I do on Big Cartel and Patreon, these platforms that are geared more towards specific artists. So definitely like research people, if there are people that you look up to for inspiration in your specific field. Definitely like figure out where they're at primarily, what are they doing to get seen. Research honestly has been one of the most like beneficial tools in my arsenal, just like figuring out where to look for information, and then like just that's the base of it all, like what to run with, and then kind of like what to focus on, so that when you're trying to get started, it doesn't feel like you're up against like, okay, I have to be showing up to the same degree on all of these channels. You have to have a presentation. It's good to have multiple, a presentation or a presentation on multiple platforms, but you can really figure out like, okay, what is my primary channel, and kind of like put a lot of your effort into that. Like for me, that's Patreon, and I'm trying to figure out how to best serve my audience there and really interact with them to get feedback, to see what kind of content they like from me. So it's just a lot of research and interacting with your prospective audience to, kind of hone in on your niche. And then obviously, keeping in mind your craft and why you love what you do, and kind of keeping that at the center of it all. And just, yeah, running with those couple of things.
That's
I hope
great
that
because
made sense. I feel like I'm kind of all
yeah.
over the place.
No, no, you're pretty much, it's putting yourself out there, like putting faith in your art and being like,
Yeah.
okay, I have these platforms. I kind of have an audience. And I feel like a lot of these creators especially indie creators, when you're putting out books and you've printed 1 or 2 books, you're kind of building this audience. You probably built something from Kickstarter or from just networking or being part of anthologies and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
creating a Patreon and having different tiered levels like $1, $5, that adds up. That starts to make a
Oh,
difference.
absolutely.
And you're devoting it
Absolutely.
to yourself. Like, do you feel like you've become more insightful to yourself by sharing everything you do on Patreon? And do you feel like you're more creative as well, coming up with what to do there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I at like the inception of my Patreon, I knew that I wanted it to be a sort of platform where I could show up authentically, like as the multifaceted artist that I am, with like, more more behind the scenes looks at like what goes into a given project, not just seeing the final result. Or I don't know, I feel like Instagram used to be a relatively decent platform for an artist's portfolio because it was a photo based
Hmm.
platform. You could kind of go to an artist's page and then just see scrollable portfolio essentially that was very easily accessible. And then they made the shift more towards video content and like, quick, like 10-15 second clips or whatever. But it's also very hard unless you're creating content specifically in that format to showcase your work in a way that will resonate with that audience, because that attention span is so quick, and that's what the platform is being is catering towards. So I wanted Patreon to be a space where I could kind of let let it all hang out, so to speak, with my projects. I do a lot of like, start to finish. Here are the conceptualizations that I did for this. Here are the character designs that I'm coming up with for that. A lot of unfinished and raw work that doesn't need to be polished, but has the same value for my audience that a finished piece might, because it still comes with the context of who I am as an artist and how you know to this point this artwork came to be. There's a lot to appreciate in that, and I think, again, by finding my audience on Patreon who appreciates these things, I'm in turn appreciating that more and then enjoying my craft more.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of
Oh,
trial and
yeah.
error, it sounds like too, like just the aspect of like falling down and getting back up time after time again to at least find that niche and find that, that spot that like makes it work for you and for your audience. That's a pretty tough thing, to be honest. And sticking to it, being consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm still not even at that point. I feel like my what I want to be creating at any one time, at any one point in time, might change.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Like right now, I am super into Pokemon, and I do love the. Excuse me. I do love the. I don't know, unique opportunity that creating a trading card presents artistically. Because you get to mesh illustration with more of an analytical and technical design aspect of like formatting a card, and then you can also like put a lot of personality into it by the moves and the abilities that you give to the cards. Especially like with like you said, with my commissions, being able to inject the personality of the client into the card that way. It's a very unique opportunity. And I don't know, I do still want to continue creating comic books, and I feel like, I don't know, I'm torn between, like, I love doing like sequential art, and now I love doing trading cards, and then I always love doing like one-off pinup illustrations. So I don't know if I've necessarily found like the niche yet, but I don't know, it's very rewarding finding these pockets where even if I don't whittle it down to just one thing, like I love that I'm engrossed in the indie comic community, and I want to get more involved in the trading card community to see like where I could fit in there. But yeah, like I said, it's a lot of like research and like feeling out these communities and like where they exist. That's just like it's all I feel like it's all so fluid and it's all like constantly changing, but it's really interesting just to keep up with it as much as you can.
And I mean, with everything you're doing and keeping up with, you are also a digital artist.
Yeah.
And aside from just like the benefit of speed, what attracts you so much to working with an iPad and like with, Procreate and tools like that?
I think that, I mean, my biggest draw is the versatility. Like I am, like I said, a graphic designer. That's what I went to school for. And being able to so easily create artwork and then format it. Like I'm a big fan of digital layouts. Like I love trade dressing my artwork, like mocking up comic book covers and stuff like that. And I love the ease of access that I can kind of just use like, across from like creating something in Procreate and then throwing it on my computer right into Photoshop. It's just like, so the workspace environment is just so easily accessible to me. And then just even like you said, beyond like being a time saver, it's just so like easy to get a bunch of ideas out at once without having to waste a ton of paper on thumbnails. And then like, I don't know, if I mess something up, like it does take a level or it takes a layer of worry away from it, because you're never having to go back from scratch unless like you really want to, which I guess
You don't
like
create those layers too, because that's been a detriment.
the layers specifically. Yeah.
Make those layers for every
Yeah,
edition,
no.
practically a new layer. I've come to learn.
Oh yeah, any artist listening knows that that fear of looking in your layers and discovering that you've drawn on the wrong one for the last like hour.
Literally happened to me at work today when I was working on this
Oh my
little
God.
zine I'm doing, and I was like doing some lettering and I was finishing it up because I was halfway done, and I didn't realize I was on the wrong layer. I just had to get rid of it all. And
Oh my gosh. That's just like, that was just like a dagger through my heart having to hear
dude,
that. I'm
my
so
whole lunch
sorry.
spent. I was all hyped, getting so much work done. Nothing. Back to where I started. Gonna
Oh
finish
my
it when I
gosh.
get off this. Um,
Yeah. All
dude,
too familiar.
that's like really great because and you're mentioning you're going from like Photoshop, I'm not Procreate to Photoshop. Tell me a little bit about your process there. Like, I love hearing about the steps people take, because I don't think people realize how many either programs you need to jump to or how many real steps there are to finish a complete piece too.
Yeah. So with specific works, like I do like fan posters for movies and stuff like that, where I'll throw, like I said, like essentially trade dressing onto a poster. So like from Procreate, like in the thumbnailing stage, I will block out space for wherever the text is going to go. But I just feel like the text editing in Procreate itself is pretty clunky. So I save all of that to then format in Photoshop. And once I have the illustration, pretty much solidified, and then I can like throw it in. I really enjoy seeing the like grid breakdown that Photoshop provides, like the layouts that it can just like generate for you, because I really appreciate the technical breakdown, like and like getting into the nitty gritty of the uh, uh, like positive and negative space for things like text and like whatever other, like, I don't know, iconography that might have to go on top of the illustration itself, because I feel like that's where I get kind of like the most, I don't know, the most tied up or like the most hung up on perfection or getting things like to a T is like, with making sure everything's like even in a given space, making sure that it serves the path of focus or like the hierarchy of information on the page. I want to make sure everything is legible. So being able to break things down like in the construction and the confines of the layout that again Photoshop can give you, it's just so helpful. And I feel like I really need that because while I enjoy everything about the illustration process in Procreate, it's a little bit harder to not even just for text and stuff, but just like the layouts are, you have to rely more on yourself to break your composition down. And I guess I don't trust myself as much with that when it comes to typography.
Dude, yeah, especially lettering. It's so, and you make a single spacing mistake, something's not aligned right. Like,
Oh yeah,
there's a
dude.
lot that goes on and stuff like that. I was hand lettering stuff because it's an old drawing I'm tracing, and that was just like
Oh
I
yeah.
was realizing like just like this is bad at a certain point. I gotta like I'm gonna re-ink over this and like start editing it from here because it's just such a crazy thing. I mean,
Yeah.
dude, the skill sets you have, aside from being, like a graphic designer, as you mentioned, going to school for that and working your way towards it, like all of the like nitty gritty things you need to figure out from editing work to knowing your programs to like, it's not even just traditional comic book making where you have a pencil and, an ink pen. There's so many literal layers to what you do to succeed and to be a freelance artist and to be able to run all these programs and make it fun and creative. It doesn't sound like it's like definitely like you've mentioned, it has not been an easy time. But it sounds like at the end of it all, you're finally getting closer to the goal that you want to get to. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of every day, I do feel like I'm one step closer to being the in the position that I want to be in. I recognize that everything that I'm doing now, even when I'm deep in the trenches and the work does feel like work, I know that it's all to serve the purpose of getting to a point in my artistic career where I am, a full time artist. And I mean, right now I do feel like I'm a full-time artist. I'm just not making the money off of it that I would like to be ideally. And I guess that's the only distinction because I do try to kind of correct myself right now. Like I sometimes don't consider myself a professional artist, but when it comes down to it, I am because I'm doing all of the work, and that kind of keeps that flame ignited because I am, you know, looking if me from even from like 5 years ago when I was graduating college, if that version of me could see where I am now, that they would be like you're doing it. And so like I don't know, I try to remind myself of that in ways to get myself in the present to be like, no, I am doing it. Like that professional artistry is my jam, and like that is what I'm doing, and that is who I am.
And it's one of those things, being a professional, you even have to show up on the days and produce work on your worst days,
Yeah.
and you're able to do that. And it doesn't seem you're stopping, and you didn't let anything stop you from achieving and coming back full circle to what you wanted to do creatively. Like what is the drive? What is, behind being an artist, behind like this whole thing? Because it's so hard and it's so difficult and it's so impossible where, a lot of people do turn another way and try to figure out like, what, it's going to be way easier to make money XYZ. It's going to be way easier to go this route. What keeps you so driven just to like find this goal aside from just, I want to be an artist and I want to, that's like an ideal thing. But what is like the real like reason that just keeps you so driven to this?
I think that I'm trying to like make my younger self proud. I think that is at the heart of everything that I do. I think I'm trying to like stay as connected with that version of myself as possible because that's so much of where my enjoyment out of life, I feel like, comes from, is like the things that I loved as a kid. Saturday morning cartoons and comic books are all things that I enjoyed as a kid. But I was making crude comic books like back in the fifth grade. Like I remember, um, it's so funny that like, we're talking about comics and Pokemon because like I was drawing comics and I was also like, I had the, Pokédex booklet or whatever. And I was drawing Pokemon, like not like trying not to trace them, but like drawing them by looking at them, like, from with books, like from the Scholastic Book Fair.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and drawing has just like, I don't know, it's like always been an outlet for me. And so I feel like, it's just another thing that I do to keep that keep that passion alive, because I feel like so often people lose passion as they grow up. And I, being 26 years old, I still find so much enjoyment out of the things that I enjoyed as a kid. I still read comic books. I still play Pokemon game, like video games, like whether they're like the new ones or like the older ones. Um, and, I just feel like these are the things that kind of like make me who I am. And drawing has always kind of been an extension of like how I express my love for the things that I enjoy. So being able to do that more professionally and like to a better like technical proficiency now, like seeing how my talent has grown, I like try to acknowledge that more too, because I, like I said, I didn't take illustration as seriously as I do until I was like on the cusp of graduating from college. And so I was always like in and out of drawing, but like, going from elementary school to middle school to high school, I was always like doodling here and there, taking art classes. And if like any of those versions of myself could see what I'm doing now, I kind of feel like I almost like owe it to my younger self to keep going, to see like where my art takes me, to see how I can engross myself more in the things that I love. And again, like show my enthusiasm for them in a way that like also injects a bit of my personality into them. I
Dude,
don't know. I
yeah.
feel like
I love that. No, it's being connected to your youth, and we all kind of do that. We all love superheroes. I still love Spider-Man because I was a Spider-Man kid growing up, and that's where we got infused with so many of these things. And here we are as adults, and it's become our lives. And we've found a
yeah,
way to shape our lives around it and be involved into this thing that we were just enamored with, in our youth. And it's led you awesome places. Like you and I are working on a comic book together. The
yes,
logo here for Inspired Ink you worked on, it's given you so many opportunities for like anthologies and putting more work on your table as you go to these festivals and conventions. So and what's crazy is that you're just like a year or two kind of into it before it starts really blowing up on you, because in the next, I mean, I know some of your personal projects, so I know in the next like 2 years they're going to have like 4 or 5 books on your table that you didn't have last year. So
yeah, yeah. And I'm just like, I don't know. It does me a great service to like step back constantly and remind myself of that trajectory, kind of like I was saying, because as I look at what I'm doing now and what I look at ahead of me, it's like all of these things are the result of me putting in that work to get to where I am and to where I want to be. Because at a point in the past, this is where I would have wanted to be. It's like you have your sights set on like the end goal, but like when you kind of get into the thick of it, you realize that is kind of like constantly moving as you grow and progress as an artist and as a creative. Your goal will shift, and you might not, you'll reach one goal and then like that'll turn into another goal. And I don't know, it's just always very humbling to see how much I've done and to see what lies ahead of me, and to just like kind of think about where I'll go from there.
yeah, no, I agree. And I feel the same experience. I would have never imagined I'm hosting a interview talk show about indie comics for comic book printing company. You know what I
Heck
mean? Like
yeah.
it's stuff like that that it trips you out. And when you're in the midst of it and it's exhausting and you're tired and you get off of work to do like an interview like we're doing today, and knowing what goes on behind the scenes and the work that we have to do behind the scenes to get these episodes prepped and ready, like it does seem a bit daunting sometimes. And you're like, man,
Yeah.
I'm tired. But you look at it and being like, I'm so proud of where we're at though. Like this is the good kind of tired you want to have. This is the
Yeah,
good kind of
absolutely.
stress. And this is all with like all the work we've put in and all the like, talking and networking and connections and effort and personality we've given out. Like that's what led us to these places. And,
Absolutely.
3 years ago, I would have never believed it. 5 years ago, I definitely wouldn't have ever believed it. But it's a trippy thing where the road can lead you and your goals kind of change. I completely agree with that, and I think that's really inspiring for people to hear that. Finding a way that works best for you, and it does take time and trial and error. You're not going to get it right on the first time, but what matters is that you just kind of get back up and try to refigure out the drawing board and see how you can put yourself out there.
Absolutely. I going back to when you asked about like, my best advice, I feel like to your point, it would definitely just to be like keep yourself and keep your reason for creating at the center of everything that you do, because it does take time and it does it can seem daunting, but it's just like it's all so worth it. you have to be mindful of what those around you are doing, but you can't let what everybody else is doing define you, because your artistry is going to take you on a specific one specific path, and no one else is on your specific path. There can be some overlap, but ultimately, you can. I said, definitely look to those who inspire you for inspiration to see how they get themselves out there. But there's not one set path for you to follow. You can you just have to pave your own way based on what you're doing.
Yeah, there was I forgot who just said it on the show, but we were talking about it. But there's this like comic book quote, Mark Waid or someone like that said it. But it's one of those things that as soon as somebody breaks into the comic book industry, they plug that way so that nobody else can break in that way. So you've got to go and figure out your own direction and way into what you're doing art wise. And it's the best way to go because don't compete. Like you're on your path, figure it out. Like, and it'll work that way because you'll be more true that way than just copying and being in fear and anxiety of what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, speaking from personal experience, like those fears do come up that like, oh, I'm not as good as like this person or that person, but you're not meant to be,
You're better than you were a year ago, probably,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You just have to, get your hands dirty. And like you said, it is daunting. And sometimes it is stressful, but it is like the good kind of stress because you can, you do have the ability to step back and recognize your progress as you're making it.
Evan, I love it. Dude, so much good information in this episode, so much good advice, and just like the thickness of it all, what it really takes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I can't wait to have you on the show again. And we're working on this live drawing thing that we'll be launching pretty soon. So we'll get you on that as soon as we can so we could draw and hang out together.
Heck yeah. That would be so awesome.
I continue to look forward to working with you as always. And why don't you tell us where to find you and what you're up to in 2024?
Sure. You can, I guess, first and foremost, if you want to support my Patreon, you can find me there at Evan Maguire Arts. That's where I, keep everyone the most up to date on my projects, what I have going on. In 2024, I'm looking forward to getting the Shadow Anthology out there. I'm so honored to be a part of the immensely talented creative team behind those stories, and so grateful that I was able to make the cut. Other than that, I'm going to be working on a lineup for tabling as the weather gets nicer. My cat just broke into my office.
Mine will pop up. I'm surprised he hasn't showed up in the last episode or two.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm also on there at Evan Maguire Art. I'm trying to get back onto posting regularly there, but it's just like I said, it's kind of difficult to stay up with. So Patreon is definitely the primary focus right now. I put out a bunch of exclusive content there. I definitely have to get you on my podcast over there too, because yes. We'll have a good time talking over there. But yeah, I'm just here and there doing my thing, making Pokemon cards, working on comics.
I love it. And you know what? Check out Evan's links in the bio. Check out his Patreon. I'm a supporter myself, and there's always some cool stuff coming that way. I can guarantee that. And also, Evan worked on the Apollo City Comics logo when we rebranded it. So, hey, show off some of his work right there. Hire this guy for some freelance. I love it. But as always, listeners, thanks for hanging. Stay creative and stay inspired. We appreciate everything you guys do. And Evan, thanks for just being Evan. Looking for high quality printing, fast turnaround, and the industry's best customer service? Look no further than Comix Wellspring. Trusted by thousands of indie comic creators, Comix Wellspring is proven to be the go-to comic book printer. So when you're ready to bring your comic books to life, go to comicswellspring.com and be sure to check out one of the best platforms to sell your physical and digital comics online, the CWS Bookstore. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell to see our lives come out twice every single week on YouTube and podcast platforms. And also tag us when you share your favorite episodes and moments from the show. And remember, creators, thanks for hanging, keep creating, and stay inspired.